I'm sorry, for a moment there it sounded like you said Borg Queen.
She's in a stasis tube, if that makes it any better.
Agnes? Are you?
Can't get rid of me that easily.
Okay. Hold on.
Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're boldly going, as they say, boldly going where few have gone before. We're diving deep into the world of rejected Star Trek pitches. You know, those episodes, those ideas that never quite made it to the screen. And sometimes, sometimes those untold stories, those what ifs, they're even more fascinating than what we actually got. Expert speaker, you've been neck deep in these archives. So tell me, what's the biggest hold the shuttlecraft moment you've found in all of this?
Okay, so get this. Ronald D. Moore, yes, Ronald D. Moore, the guy who went on to basically breathe new life into Battlestar Galactica. Well, he almost steered Voyager in a totally different direction. Like, we were this close to getting a sort of proto-Battlestar Galactica hidden within the Star Trek universe. Can you imagine?
Whoa, okay. Now that is a deep cut, I gotta say. I mean, yeah, we know more. He jumped ship, went on to other things, but to think that he almost merged those worlds. I need details. Give me the details.
Oh, you bet. But before we go full warp into Battlestar territory, you had some pretty interesting stuff on a rejected Voyager episode.
Right.
Once Upon a Time, I think it was. On the surface, pretty standard episode, but underneath.
Well, it's funny you should say that because, yeah, I remember vaguely little Naomi Wildman, she's in the holodeck, right? Wow. And Neelix he's trying to keep her occupied, keep her distracted. Sweet, sure, but not exactly what you'd call a nail biter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where things get really, really interesting. The original concept, the first draft, whatever you want to call it, way more intense. Okay, picture this. Voyager, right? It's trapped. It's in the middle of this huge intergalactic war zone. Explosions everywhere. It's escape pods. People they're trying to get out. It's pure chaos. And the only safe space, the holodeck, where Neelix is, he's basically just frantically trying to maintain this facade, this sense of normalcy for little Naomi.
Wow. Okay, that is definitely not the Once Upon a Time that I remember watching.
Right, and that was the whole point. The writers, they were going for this really stark contrast. Like, you've got this whimsical, almost Alice in Wonderland vibe.
Yeah.
In the holodeck program, right?
Right.
And it's juxtaposed with this really harsh, this really brutal reality of war that's literally happening right outside the door. The tension, the emotional weight of it all. I mean, the sheer audacity of the concept. It could have been, incredible. But then came the infamous Rick Berman veto.
Ah, Rick Berman, the final frontier for so many Star Trek decisions back then. What was his reasoning this time? Did Voyager have like an action quota they had to meet or something?
Ironically, too much action. You see, Deep Space Nine, that was airing at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And they were knee deep in the Dominion War, all that stuff. And Berman, he wanted to avoid, what he saw as war fatigue. I mean, 2 shows, same conflict, same time period. He thought it would be too much. Which, in hindsight, that's almost more interesting, isn't it? I mean, DS9, it gets praised for all of its gritty war storylines, right? And Voyager sometimes people say it played it safe,
Yeah.
So did they make the wrong call? Did they err on the side of caution? Would Once Upon a Time be hailed as this masterpiece today if Berman had just given it the green light? We'll never know.
We'll never know. And speaking of alternate realities and paths not taken, let's circle back to Ronald D. Moore, shall we? And this whole almost Battlestar thing on Voyager. How does a near war story like that connect to a completely different franchise? It seems like a jump.
Yeah, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
All right, so it's all about context,
Yeah.
Moore, he came from the Next Generation, right? And Deep Space Nine. Both syndicated shows. Now, for those who weren't around in the pre-Screaming Dark Ages syndication, basically, it meant more creative freedom, fewer network execs breathing down your neck. But Voyager was different. It was on UPN, right? A young network, hungry for a hit, desperate for a hit.
So very, very different playing field, more pressure, fewer risks. Like everything's got to be a slam dunk.
Exactly, exactly. And you can imagine the culture shock that poor Moore must experience, going from this world, this established world of syndicated Trek, to this network-driven environment. I mean, it was a big shift. Not to mention that Voyager was, well, let's face it, they were struggling to find their footing in the ratings, weren't they? He only lasted, what, a short while in the writers' room. But during his time there, we saw an opportunity. Moore pitched this concept where Voyager, they stumble across this cluster of alien ships, like refugees, essentially, all desperate to escape from, I don't know, some unknown threat, right? And his big idea was for Voyager to basically become like the head honcho, the leader of this ragtag fleet, shepherding them across, some dangerous, some unexplored stretch of space.
Hold on. This sounded really familiar. Ships banding together there. They're facing these incredible odds. There's this sense of desperation. Are we basically talking about like the core premise of Battlestar Galactica,
Yep.
but with Starfleet?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Moore's fingerprints they're all over it. And what's even more interesting, even more kind of eerie, is that Voyager, they almost went there. They almost dipped their toes into similar waters with that two-parter. What was it called? Equinox.
You're talking about that other Starfleet crew, right? The ones who basically went full survival of the fittest, just to power their warp drive.
Yeah.
chilling stuff. But didn't they get vaporized in the end? No ragtag fleet for Janeway and the gang to lead.
Precisely. And that, my friend, is where our deep dive takes us. Firmly into what if territory. Had Moore stayed on Voyager, I mean, who's to say, right? Who's to say we wouldn't have gotten a season, maybe even 2 seasons of this proto Battlestar storyline? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Would Battlestar Galactica, like the one we know and some people love, would it even exist today? You're blowing my mind here. Moore's influence, you're saying, it could have subtly shaped the entire landscape of sci-fi as we know it. That's a big thought. It really is. It makes you appreciate just how significant even these seemingly small decisions, these little choices, they can be in the grand scheme of things. It's true. It's really true. And this brings us to another example of a seemingly minor, a seemingly insignificant detail that ended up having this huge impact. This time it's about set design, or more accurately, the lack of a very specific piece of furniture.
All right, you've definitely got my attention. What piece of missing furniture could be this significant? I mean, I'm dying to know.
Okay, so think about all the iconic sci-fi shows out there, right? The ones we all know and love. What do most captains? What do they have on the bridge of their ship? It's like a staple.
Let me guess that they have a comfy chair. They've got to have a comfy chair.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. The captain's chair. Right. Kirk, he had one. Picard, Janeway, even Sisko, in his more stationary moments on Deep Space Nine. Yep. I mean, come on, it's practically a sci-fi trope in itself.
Right.
It's this symbol of authority, of leadership, and let's be honest, often a hefty special effects budget.
Now that you mention it, I can't imagine those shows without the captain's chair. It's like its own character at this point. But you're suggesting that someone dared to challenge this sacred tradition, this icon of sci-fi.
Wait, someone did. Someone definitely did, and that someone was once again, drum roll please, Ronald D. Moore. In Battlestar Galactica. Where's Adama's comfy chair? Where is it?
You're right. He's always standing at that command console in the Combat Information Center, or CIC as they call it. No plush cushioning, no lumbar support for him. But wouldn't that get? I mean, that would get a bit tiring after a while, wouldn't it? I mean, even the toughest, most hardened space commanders, they need to rest those weary legs every now and then, don't they?
Exactly. But that's the whole point, you see. That's entirely the point. And guess who made that very deliberate choice? Guess who?
Let me guess. This is another subtle, more rebellion, right? Another dig at those oh so familiar Star Trek tropes.
You are 2 for 2.
Bingo.
He's talked about how he wanted to deliberately subvert expectations, after his years on Star Trek. He even said, and I quote, if Star Trek went right, Battlestar would go left. And ditching the captain's chair, I mean, come on, that's a pretty strong visual statement, don't you think?
It really is. It really is. Adama always seems so commanding, so in charge, so ready for action. And now I realize part of that is because he's literally always standing. He's never more than a step away from the action. It completely changes the dynamic, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It creates this sense of urgency, of constant vigilance. In Star Trek, even during those red alert moments, those really tense scenes, there's this sense that things are, for the most part under control. The captain's chair, it embodies that stability,
Mm-hmm.
But with Adama, he's always on edge. He's always in the thick of it, and it mirrors the constant tension, the constant pressure that his crew that they're facing. It makes you wonder, though, how his back held up after all that standing. I mean, seriously.
That's the real mystery, isn't it? But joking aside, you've really highlighted how such a seemingly insignificant detail, something so small, it can make a world of difference. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about all those little choices, those subtle decisions that directors, showrunners, they make all the time. Stuff that we, as viewers, we don't even consciously think about, really.
Yeah.
And yet those choices, they have this huge impact on how we see the story, how we experience it.
It's a testament to their craft, isn't it? They're thinking about all this stuff, so we don't have to.
Yeah.
But it still seeps in. It gets into our subconscious, and it shapes our whole perception of the show, of that whole world. In a way, Battlestar Galactica's success is even more impressive when you think about it like that. I mean, they were deliberately going against the grain. They were challenging those established sci-fi tropes, the things that Ronald D. Moore, he knew backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And they nailed it.
You've definitely convinced me. I need to go back and rewatch Battlestar Galactica now, like with fresh eyes. Pay attention to all these little things, these details we're talking about. It's amazing how much richer, how much deeper these stories become when you start to look beyond the surface.
That's what this deep dive is all about.
Right.
Uncovering those hidden layers.
Yeah.
Exploring the roads not taken, the paths not traveled. It makes you wonder what other almost stories are out there. What if once upon a time, what if it had become that whole season long, that war story? What if Ronald D. Moore, he'd stayed within the Star Trek universe?
But with this whole ragtag fleet idea, the possibilities, I mean, they're pretty tantalizing, aren't they?
They really are. Yeah. It reminds us that even in these fictional worlds, creativity, it thrives on exploring every option, even the ones that ultimately, get left behind, get left on the cutting room floor. And sometimes those choices, they lead to entirely new universes being born. So to all our listeners out there, here's something to think about. Next time you're enjoying your favorite show, your favorite movie, whatever it is, just take a moment, right? Take a moment to think about the decisions, the choices that were made behind the scenes. Ask yourself what could have been different, what could have been. You might be surprised by what you discover. Until next time, keep diving deeper.